Welcome everyone to the Pick Six podcast, where we discuss the biggest stories in college football. I'm your host, Chris Chang, and thank you all for joining us for another episode. I hope everyone had an incredible Thanksgiving yesterday. We're going to jump right into it, but don't forget, send us your story ideas, thepick6guys@gmail.com. We want to know, what do you guys want to hear and see us talk about? Also, give us a thumbs up, like this video, maybe share it if you're inclined to do it. It's the holiday season. Let's do a little giving. Give someone this video. Let's get into it, guys. Listen, the talk of the week has been the CFP, the drama associated with it, and where does Miami fall? Well, Miami ended up jumping up one spot to number 12, jumping Utah. Currently, Miami is in the pool with Notre Dame, BYU, and Alabama. All those teams are favorites in their games and probably will not lose, which means Miami will need to do some convincing this week, okay? They're going to need to show up and show out. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying any of these arguments confirming the rankings make sense. But like I said in the past video, it's a beauty pageant, and how you look matters. And this is all subjective extremely, okay? Like to the nth degree. None of this is objective. None of this is based on merit, clearly, because you look at them honoring the head-to-head between Bama and Oklahoma, but not us and Notre Dame. Come on, man. Miss me with that. Now, I think if Miami wins out, there will be a lot of people clamoring for them to get into the top 10. Now, we need to remember Miami needs the at-large bid in the event reality still exists tomorrow, because their shot at the ACC title is very, very slim. Now, here's how Miami makes it into the top 10. Now, let's look at the current teams at 9 and 2. Those would be Miami at 12, Alabama at 10, Notre Dame at 9, and Oklahoma at 8. Now, I'm not considering BYU in this mix because they will either get jumped like Utah did or lose to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship and eliminate themselves from contention. So, looking at those 9 and 2 teams, okay? Here's how I see it all if it pans out as expected. One of the SEC teams is probably going to get kicked out, and either us or Notre Dame is either in, or vice versa. They keep the two SEC teams out, and either us or Notre Dame is out. Now, why do I say this? Well, these four teams are all vying for the last three at-large spots, and I can't imagine them eliminating two SEC teams, right? So, I also think five SEC teams is a lot, even for the CFP. So, honestly, a lot of these teams have either played each other or have played very similar teams. So, you're kind of already going to get an idea of who would be the best teams to send from the SEC. And not to mention that, it's like I feel like if you've already gotten four teams, those are hopefully your four best teams, and the rest of your teams shouldn't matter, because those four teams are going to give you your best shot at winning a championship, right? So Bama could play and win the SEC could play and win the SEC championship with a win over Auburn tomorrow, and whoever makes the SEC championship, catapulting them to an even higher spot, solidifying their spot, right? So let's say Texas A&M wins tonight against Texas, which I think they will. They'll probably play Alabama for the SEC championship game. Something tells me Alabama might actually beat A&M. If they don't, then boom, Alabama's gone, and now there's a different thing again, what we're talking about. But we're talking about four teams competing for three spots. Very musical chairs, right? Now, while Oklahoma would have the head-to-head, Bama winning the championship would overshadow that, and boom, that eliminates one of those teams. Now, Bama could jump to 3 because they beat UGA in the event they win the SEC championship. Texas A&M, with a loss in the championship game, would probably fall to around 7, knocking everyone else down 1 from 3 down, right? Which would leave Oklahoma, Miami, and Notre Dame all competing. I have got all of their strength of records, or their records, right here. You can check them out. When we look at them, I'm being honest, I'm not seeing one team outshining another, except for when you specifically talk about Miami and Notre Dame. I think our wins are better than their wins, and you can say that losses matter, but who cares about losses? We're not comparing losses. Losses shouldn't matter. It should be wins. It should be your record. And it should be, at the end of the day, head to head. Now, when I look over at Oklahoma's, I don't see any major wins. You can say Michigan, but Michigan to me is a mid Big Ten team. Again, they lost to Texas, who is not that great of an SEC team. They lost to Ole Miss, who will make the playoffs, but they did beat Tennessee and Alabama. So that's kind of giving them credence. It's them winning the last 2 weeks. I'm not considering the Missouri win a big thing because they lost Bo Perbula, and if they had their quarterback, I'm not even sure that would even have gone the way it did. You look at Alabama. Alabama's got only one loss in the SEC, but two overall, and one of those losses being, and everyone is forgetting this, the FSU game. So again, if we want to start talking about um, common opponents, which is what you would look at when you're matching people who have not played each other, right? So if you were to look at us and Bama, yes, Bama has more ranked wins, and specifically the one over Georgia, which I think looks really good and is still sticking in the voters' minds. Um, but I'm not all that thoroughly impressed with Vanderbilt, Missouri, even Tennessee, right? I'm not really, again, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, they're kind of the same team. They're going to play each other tomorrow. We're going to see how that goes out. But they did lose to Oklahoma, right? Who lost to Texas? Who lost to the Gators? Guess who beat the Gators? Miami. Guess who also beat FSU? Miami. So again, depending on how you want to look at, there's an argument for everything. Realistically, like I said, I think you just take these teams and you put them in. Realistically, when we're looking at all of these teams and we're looking at all the records, to me, the weakest one is Notre Dame. So if we only have 3 spots for these 4 teams, to me, I think it has to go to Miami, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Realistically, I don't like the fact that 5 SEC teams could make it in, but again, that is just the way these things go. Again, like I just said before, I can't stress how important I think head-to-heads need to matter. And again, if you're going to use it for Alabama and Oklahoma, I think you need to use it for Notre Dame and Miami, should they get close. Again, that is with a win tomorrow with both teams. I think they both will win out. And that's for now. Again, where we go. I could see them jumping BYU Miami tomorrow with a really stout victory, not needing that elimination from the Big 12, losing in the Big 12 championship, because I think, in my opinion, I believe that the committee is waiting for Miami to get it to at least one spot. I mean, we would have to wait and see what the committee says in their rationale this week, but I think they're waiting for that finish of Miami holding up their end of the deal, going 10-2, so that there's only that one space, and they have to use the head-to-head, in which case they're going to have to eliminate either Notre Dame, Oklahoma, or Alabama. And if Alabama wins the SEC championship, I just don't see them eliminating them. Like I couldn't imagine that. They're going to jump anyways, because there's going to be one more batch of rankings after the championship weekend. They've stated that losing in the championship game won't eliminate you from the playoffs, but Oklahoma won't be in the championship game. Remember, they'll be sitting out that week. They'll be having a bye week. So where that goes, we don't know. We will also. Now, if we go to the final rankings and Miami and Notre Dame are only separated by one team, there will be riots if head-to-head isn't considered. I mean, especially with Miami finishing out against a ranked opponent. Okay. I think Notre Dame is playing Stanford this week. They're going to the West Coast. Maybe the travel, maybe the late game. It's a 10:30 Eastern kickoff. Maybe that will impact them. Who knows? But I think with a ranked win this weekend, specifically a good ranked win, like a good size margin of victory, I definitely think we could see Miami jumping, forcing the head-to-head argument. Now, speaking of Miami and Pitt, we've got number 12 Miami heading to Pittsburgh, number 22 in their season finale. Got some questions going into this game. What does the weather look like, and what kind of a factor will it play? Apparently, it's going to be in the mid to low 30s, but it will be clear with a chance of flurries towards the end of the game. I'm not sure how that's going to change. I'll be checking in the morning, but will weather be playing a factor? I think another thing I'm looking at, who remains injured or who returns, but in a limited role. We've had some key injuries out. Keontae Scott is still out and has been ruled out of this game. CJ Daniels, Jacoby Thomas, and OJ Federico all seem to be healthy and have no injury designation to their names. So we could hopefully expect to see them back in their spots, especially those DBs that we need. Defensive lineman David Blay is still listed as questionable and has missed the last 2 games, which again affects the depth of that D line, which I would like to see. Another question I'm looking at is what sort of role will officiating have in this game? Now, this is the season finale, and a lot is riding on this game. We all know that. While refs shouldn't be a factor, we have seen some questionable calls and have seen some flat out egregious calls that have impacted Miami's games. Now, let's look at the Pitt offense. Pitt is a tricky team. Okay. whose record can be a little bit misleading, right? Since switching to true freshman Mason Heinchel, they have gone 6-1. However, only two of those teams out of the six teams that they've beat could really be considered competitive. One of them only half, which is NC State being one game over 500, and Georgia Tech only dropping 2 games. Now, the Panthers are averaging 35 points per game, and their defense is only allowing 25 points per game. Now, however, they do struggle running the ball, ranking 111th, only averaging about 3.5 yards per carry. But behind the arm of Heinchel, they are a top 20 passing team, averaging 280 yards per game, completing 62% of their passes. Now, Heinchel does get sacked 9% of his dropbacks, which ranks 122 nationally. Okay, so the guy's a little bit sack prone, a little bit. Now, the Panthers also struggle on first down, only converting a third of their attempts. So let's now look at the Pitt defense, which is pretty much their strong suit. Now, while Pitt's offense can be hit or miss, their defense has managed to be consistent, especially when it comes to the run. They're really good. They've always had good D linemen and good linebackers. The Panthers are only allowing 2.9 yards a run, which is about 7th in the country. So they have a top 10 run defense. They're only giving teams 98 yards rushing a game, which is 11th in the country. Again, they can stop the run, which was a problem for us last week. Now, however, that secondary, it's a little bit Swiss cheese, a little inconsistent. They are allowing opponents to complete about 62 of their passes, giving up 7 yards a throw, which is 51st in the nation, and allowing nearly 244 yards through the air, which is 97th in the nation. Now, here are some keys that I think for Pitt that if they want to win, right? First, they need to stop Malachi Tony without selling out, meaning without diverting too many players to covering him, okay? Or switching up a scheme that would allow us to run the ball better or find other weapons, right? Malachi Tony has 90 targets without a drop, so he will obviously be a factor like he's been all year. I think next they need to shut down the run or at least limit it at a minimum. Virginia Tech did really well last week, limiting us on the run. Luckily, we were able to throw the ball really well. That's also because Virginia Tech has a horrible secondary. Pitt's a little bit better, but again, if you take away a facet, I think that can really impact the game. I think Pitt's going to really want to force Carson Beck to throw the ball, maybe make some mistakes, maybe kill some clock, whereas if you're running the ball, you're controlling the clock. I think they can hopefully force Carson Beck off the field with some 3-and-outs. Now, how does Pitt's O-line fare against Miami's D-line? This will be a crucial concept for Pitt if they want to win this game. Pitt's O-line grades in the low 60s in both run and pass blocking, not the strongest O-line. Miami's D-line, on the other hand, is grading out in the 90s when it comes to pass rush, and run defense, okay? Heinchel plummets in accuracy when under pressure and is averaging about 2.84 seconds a throw, which he may want to tune up and maybe get that ball out a little quicker with Miami's pass rush coming in. For example, Miller Moss was getting rid of the ball at 2.32 seconds, and while a half a second doesn't sound like a big difference, it could mean a lot, especially when playing a team that gets pressure on 44% of plays. That's 4th nationally, by the way. I think if Pitt can establish the run and protect Heinchel, they will not only control the time of possession, but wear out Miami's defense, who's played 78 snaps in the loss to SMU and 63 snaps against Louisville. Again, wearing down the depth, getting them tired, always plays a factor in Miami playing bad or losing games. Now, Miami has struggled to shut down the run last week against Virginia Tech. They let Virginia Tech run all over them. This week, the defense will need to play lights out in the front seven and the secondary if they want to win, okay? If Miami lets this team run, it could be bad news bears. Very, very bad because, again, Heinchel can get his quick plays out, get his quick throws out. They can play a more balanced offense and control that time of possession, which I was talking about. Now, some keys for Miami. Establish the run. Dominate. The O-line needs to dominate the line of scrimmage, and the running backs need to clear that first level and average at least 4 to 4.5 yards a carry this game. I think if it's anything less than, I think we were only 2.8 yards last week. Not enough. Not going to do it, especially in cold weather, okay? And again, we don't know what the weather's going to play. If those flurries start coming in, passing game's not going to work. And sadly, I mean, a lot of players don't like to throw the ball in the cold in fear of getting knocked out across the mill. So I think another aspect for Miami and a key that they need to look into is minimizing the penalties. Play smart, play disciplined. Last week, we had nearly 90 yards in penalties, and a lot of them, usually with the penalties, come at the worst times, killing drives or making it really hard to score and score touchdowns in the red zone. I think another aspect for Miami will be to get turnovers, right? The Canes have a +9 turnover margin, which is 14th nationally. I think if we can get pressure on Heinzel, we can get him to make some bad throws, flip the field, get picks, get a pick six. We've done it twice this season. Maybe we can do it this game. Show up and be ready. Now, I think another aspect of this game, which is obvious, is go up early, right? I think Miami can't play that slow, methodical play. They need to get up by at least 2 scores and put Pitt on their heels. I think Pitt struggles when they have to play from behind. And even worse, they allow good to decent teams to stay in games and come back, minus that Georgia Tech game. They didn't let them come back in. But every other game, a lot of teams are able to get back in the game. So I think if Miami can at least keep it competitive, if not take that early lead, I think that puts Pittsburgh in a really, really bad position. I would also like to see Miami's wide receivers and tight ends execute at an elite level. I think it's the final game. You've got to show up. You've got to show out. There can't be any drop balls or very limited drop balls. There can't be any of the deflected or bobble balls that turn into interceptions. We need to hold on to the balls. Bauman dropping the ball in the end zone, costing us a touchdown. We can go through every game. It happens every game. This week, I'd really like to see that completely nixed and nipped in the bud. I think the defense also needs to assert its dominance on the line of scrimmage. I would rather see a steady pressure rate and an edge that is completely set than a couple of sacks matched with their running backs breaking through to the second level. I don't want to see that. I think that's something that Miami has struggled with all season. It's been something that was a thorn in our side last year, which was these running backs or these playmakers getting to that second level to the DBs. And sadly, last year we couldn't tackle at all. This year they just are able to find the space and get chunks of yards that really, really hurt us, especially extending those drives. I think how Ruben Bain and Hakeem Mesidor go is how this game will go. If we don't see them pushing back those tackles or creating enough disruption, I don't know if Miami will win the game the way they need to. Again, it has to be style points. It has to look good. Listen, I'm almost positive Miami is going to win this. I very, 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 very like small doubts that Pittsburgh will pull the upset. But it would also not be a surprise given the history of this program, right? Last season we lost to Syracuse. This year it could be Pitt. Granted, last year was in a dome. This year will be outside. We'll have to see what sort of factor that plays. Now, it's not that we're playing a super overly competitive opponent, but what I'm worried about is us playing ourselves. Penalties, costly mistakes, God forbid fumbles or turnovers with interceptions. We can't do any of that. If we want to move up, we need to win convincingly. Now, I say that, but I have Miami winning this only by 10. I have the score 38-28. Realistically, we need to win by 22. Why do you say 22? I say 22 because that's what Notre Dame beat them by 2 weeks ago. It is what it is, guys. I'm not saying it's right. I don't agree with it. I don't want it to be like that. But if we really want to take all factors out, you'll have a litmus test with both teams playing in Pittsburgh within 2 weeks of each other. How do they fare if they don't want to honor the head-to-head, right? So I realistically see Miami winning 38-28. Maybe the 10 will be enough. It'll cover the spread. But if Miami really wants to make a point and they really want to show the CFP committee that they are better than Notre Dame, they need to win by 22 points or more. If not, again, we're going to get into the weeds of this thing. They're going to use whatever flavor of the week, whatever factor of the week they want to use to keep Notre Dame ahead of us. It's annoying. I know. We've still got 2 more weeks left of this to figure out the ranking system. We've got this weekend and championship weekend. We'll see what happens. Well, guys, we have got another one in the books. Thank you all for joining. As always, be good, y'all. Win the weekend. And as always, go Canes.